Somebody get this cockroach away from my client before she gives him something worse than allergies.
That's what a CEO said, while his most important client was choking at the dinner table,
Copy that.
and a black waitress was the only one trying to save him. Willa didn't stop.
He's choking.
She
Please
held
send
the
help
man
now.
steady and kept translating for the 911 operator. Gregory Preston grabbed her arm
you deaf
and
too?
yanked her backward.
I said hands off.
Willa looked him dead in the eye.
This man will die if I stop talking.
The client was gasping in Arabic.
Copy that. I'm
The only
taking control
person
of the
who
situation
understood
now.
was the woman he just called a cockroach. What she did next didn't just save that man. It destroyed Gregory Preston's entire career. And it all started 30 minutes earlier, with one word on a menu. Nah. The fact that she still helped him after all that? Wait till you hear how this whole thing started.
30 minutes earlier, the Colton Grill was the quietest kind of loud. Forks on porcelain, ice in crystal. The low hum of people who never worry about the check. Friday night, downtown Chicago, the most expensive steakhouse in the Loop. Gregory Preston had reserved the private dining room 3 months in advance. Tonight was the night. Sheikh Tariq Al-Farsi, founder of Al-Farsi Capital, one of the biggest investment firms in Saudi Arabia, was flying in to finalize a $30 million deal. Gregory had spent weeks preparing. Custom menu, hand-picked wine list, a professional Arabic translator booked and confirmed. But the translator's flight got canceled. No backup, no plan B. Gregory didn't blink. They all speak English anyway. We'll be fine. He was wrong. The delegation arrived at 7. Sheikh Tariq walked in first. Tall, composed, silver cufflinks, a quiet authority that didn't need volume. Behind him, 2 senior advisors, and his personal assistant, Rania, a woman in her 30s who carried a leather medical bag and spoke only Arabic. Nobody noticed the bag. Not yet. Gregory shook hands like he was running for office. Big smile, firm grip, first name basis before anyone sat down. Sheikh Tariq nodded politely. His English was functional, enough for small talk, not enough for contract law. Willa Hayes was assigned to the table. She brought the menus. The chef had prepared lamb uzi as a welcome gesture, a traditional Arabic dish. Willa pronounced it correctly, softly, naturally, the way she'd heard it said 1,000 times at a Yemeni grocery store on 63rd Street. Gregory stopped mid-sentence, stared at her, then waved his hand, gold cufflink catching the light, like he was swatting something off the table. Nobody asked you to perform. Just take the orders and keep your mouth shut. That's what we're paying you for. 12 people heard it. Nobody said a word. Sheikh Tariq's eyes moved to Willa for just a moment, then back to his menu. He noticed something Gregory didn't. Her pronunciation was perfect. Willa's jaw tightened. She wrote down the drink orders, walked back to the service station, set her pen down beside a worn leather journal tucked in her apron pocket. The deal was already starting to crack, but nobody in that room knew that the real disaster hadn't even begun. The dinner was falling apart, slowly, politely, the way expensive things break. Sheikh Tariq's 2 senior advisors didn't speak English, not a word. And the financial discussion Gregory had planned, equity structures, profit-sharing models, liability clauses, required precision. Not small talk, not hand gestures, precision. The advisors kept leaning toward Sheikh Tariq, whispering in rapid Arabic. He'd listen, nod, then try to relay their concerns in English. But the translation was rough. Key terms got lost. Nuance disappeared.
Gregory didn't notice. He kept pushing slides across the table, pointing at numbers, talking faster. He mistook their polite silence for agreement. Thomas Caldwell noticed. He sat across the table, watching the Sheikh's advisors exchange glances after every mistranslated sentence. He could see it clearly. The deal was drowning in the gap between two languages. Willa saw it too. She was refilling water glasses, clearing bread plates, moving around the table like furniture, invisible the way Gregory preferred. But she could hear everything. Every Arabic whisper, every frustrated pause. Every time the senior advisor said one thing, and Sheikh Tariq translated it into something smaller. She understood all of it. The breaking point came when Sheikh Tariq finally set down his pen. He looked at Gregory and said carefully, "Mr. Preston, my advisors have serious concerns about Section 14. I cannot explain properly in English. We need someone who speaks Arabic." Gregory pulled out his phone. Google Translate. He held it up like a solution. The advisor spoke a full paragraph about liability structures in Islamic finance. The app returned gibberish. Something about the prophet of sin and forbidden trees. Victor Sloan tried a different app. Same result. Thomas Caldwell leaned forward. "Greg, we need a real translator. This isn't working." Gregory snapped. "I have it under control." He didn't. At the service station, Willa set down a stack of plates. She could feel her heartbeat in her fingertips. She knew she could walk over there and fix this in 30 seconds. But 30 minutes ago, this man had told her to keep her mouth shut. Speaking up now meant risking everything. Her pride, her job, another public humiliation. Her hand went to the journal in her apron pocket. Worn leather, taped spine, pages filled with 6 languages she had taught herself over 10 years. Inside the front cover, her grandmother's handwriting, words she could feel without looking. She took one breath. Then she walked, not to Gregory, to Thomas Caldwell, the only person at that table who hadn't looked through her. "Sir, I speak Arabic, Modern Standard and Levantine dialect. If the delegation would be more comfortable, I can help translate." Gregory laughed. Actually laughed. Her? Arabic? What's next? She flies the plane home, too? Thomas didn't smile. He raised one hand. Gregory's laugh died in his throat. "Sheikh Tariq," Thomas said, "would you permit our colleague to assist?" Sheikh Tariq looked at Willa. He remembered the Uzi, the perfect pronunciation. He nodded. Willa turned to the senior advisor. She spoke in clear, fluent Arabic. Not textbook Arabic, Levantine Arabic, the lived-in kind, the kind that sounds like family. She asked him to explain his concerns about Section 14, in his own words, at his own pace. The man's face changed, like a dam breaking. Weeks of bottled-up frustration came pouring out. Liability frameworks, revenue models, and something nobody at the table expected. His concern that certain profit structures violated Islamic finance principles. Interest-based returns conflicted with religious law. Willa translated every word. But she didn't just translate. She explained. She told Thomas that the concern wasn't only legal. It was religious, cultural. She mentioned an alternative framework she had read about, one that restructured returns as profit sharing rather than interest. The room went dead silent. Gregory's mouth hung open. Victor Sloan stopped pretending to type. Sheikh Tariq stared at Willa for a long time. Then he smiled. The first real smile of the night.
Where have you been all evening?
No, hold on. This man told her to shut up, called her uneducated, in front of everyone. And now she's explaining Islamic finance better than his whole team combined? From library books? Put yourself in that room right now. Tell me you wouldn't lose your mind.
Gregory Preston sat at the head of the table. His $30 million deal had just been saved by the waitress he told to shut up. And the night still wasn't over. You're probably wondering how a waitress on the south side of Chicago ended up speaking 6 languages. The answer starts with a woman named Loretta Hayes, Willa's grandmother, the only family she ever had.
Loretta cleaned offices at night, took in ironing during the day. She never finished high school, never left Chicago, never owned a car. But she kept a shelf of old encyclopedias in their 2-bedroom apartment. And every night before bed, she'd say the same thing. The world is bigger than this block, baby. Learn its languages, and you'll never be locked out. Willa believed her. She was a straight-A student. Got accepted to the University of Illinois at Chicago. Full ride almost within reach. Everything was lined up. Then Loretta got sick. Diabetes complications. Couldn't work. Couldn't walk some days. Willa was 19. She became her grandmother's nurse, cook, and only companion. College got deferred. Then deferred again. Then it just quietly disappeared, the way dreams do when rent is due. But she never stopped learning. There was a Yemeni family on 63rd Street. Fatima and her husband ran a small grocery store. Willa started going there every day, at first just to buy rice and cooking oil, then to talk, then to listen, then to learn. 4 years of daily conversation. That's how she learned Arabic, not from a classroom, from a woman who handed her change and taught her vocabulary at the same time. French came from a Congolese church group on Saturdays, Spanish from co-workers at the restaurant, Portuguese from a Brazilian neighbor who traded language lessons for help with English paperwork. 6 languages. 0 tuition. Just a curious mind that refused to quit. And the journal. That worn leather journal she carried in her apron every single shift was Loretta's gift. Inside the front cover, written in shaky handwriting that got worse as the diabetes took hold, "For all the words you'll learn that I never could." Loretta passed away 2 years ago. Willa was holding her hand when it happened. She still waitresses, still studies every morning before her shift, still carries the journal everywhere. Some pages have coffee stains, some have tear marks. All of them have words Loretta never got to learn. Back at the restaurant, the kitchen doors swung open. A new appetizer plate was being carried toward Sheikh Tariq's table. But the night was far from over. With Willa at the table, the conversation changed. Not just the language, the energy. Sheikh Tariq's advisors were finally talking, really talking. Weeks of frustration pouring out in full Arabic sentences, complex and layered. And Willa caught every word, translated every nuance, gave Thomas Caldwell exactly what he needed to respond with precision. For the first time all night, the deal had a pulse. But Gregory Preston was ruining it. He kept interrupting Sheikh Tariq mid-sentence, jumping in with numbers before the man had finished his thought, pushing for a signature tonight, right now, before dessert. Then he made a joke, something about how slowly things move in the Middle East. He chuckled at his own words. Nobody else did. The advisors stiffened. Sheikh Tariq's smile disappeared. Rania, sitting quietly beside him,
looked down at the table. Willa felt it immediately. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees in half a second. She was caught in an impossible position. Her job was to translate Gregory's words. But Gregory's words were destroying the deal in real time. Every sentence out of his mouth pushed Sheikh Tariq further away. She translated exactly what Gregory said, word for word. She didn't soften it, didn't protect him, let the man hang himself with his own rope. But then she leaned toward Thomas Caldwell, quietly, almost a whisper. Sir, in Arab business culture, pushing for an immediate answer is considered deeply disrespectful. The sheikh expects a relationship conversation first, trust before transaction. Thomas nodded once. That was all he needed. He took over, smoothly, naturally, like sliding into the driver's seat without stopping the car. He asked Sheikh Tariq about his family, about his background, about his vision for the fund. Not business questions, human questions. Sheikh Tariq leaned back in his chair. His shoulders dropped. The advisors uncrossed their arms. Rania looked up. The deal was breathing again. And Gregory realized what had just happened. His own partner and his own waitress had taken control of his dinner. Right in front of him. Right in front of his client. His hand went to his Patek Philippe, adjusted it again. The watch was worth $40,000. Right now, it couldn't buy him back a single ounce of control. Across the table, Thomas Caldwell's Timex sat flat on his wrist. Still, steady, unhurried. Victor Sloan leaned over and whispered, "Should we do something about this?" Gregory's jaw tightened. She's a waitress. This is my deal. But it wasn't. Not anymore. At the service station, Denise, the senior waitress, 15 years on the floor, watched the whole thing unfold through the glass partition. She'd already taken over all of Willa's other tables without being asked. Didn't say a word about it. Just handled it. She caught Willa's eye across the room and gave one small nod, the kind that says, "I see you. Keep going." The kitchen was running behind Willa too. Chef Roland Moore had been watching through the service window. He didn't know what Willa was saying in Arabic, but he knew what competence looked like, and he hadn't seen anything like this in 22 years behind that pass. For 20 minutes, everything held together. The advisors were engaged, Sheikh Tariq was warming up, Thomas was building a bridge, word by word, with Willa as the foundation underneath. For 20 minutes, it seemed like the night might actually end well. Then the new appetizer plate arrived. Roasted cauliflower with a pistachio and cashew crumble. A beautiful dish, the chef's signature. Sheikh Tariq took one bite, then another. And nobody at that table knew that those 2 bites had just changed everything. Gregory Preston had seen enough. His waitress was sitting in on a $30 million negotiation. His partner had sidelined him at his own dinner, and his client was smiling at the help instead of signing the contract. He pulled out his phone and texted the restaurant manager. 3 words. Private room, now. Dale Whitford showed up in under a minute, napkin still tucked in his vest, nervous smile already locked in place. Gregory didn't whisper. Get her out of here. She's a waitress, not a consultant. This is embarrassing. Dale looked at Willa, looked at Gregory, looked at the table full of Saudi investors who were, for the first time all evening, actually engaged in conversation. He chose the paycheck. Willa, maybe you should get back to your section.
Let the professionals handle the rest. Willa's face didn't move, not a muscle. But her hand drifted to her apron pocket, to the journal, to Loretta. Before she could speak, Thomas Caldwell stood up. Slowly, the way a man stands when he wants every eye in the room. She stays, or I leave, and the sheikh leaves with me. 6 seconds of silence. Dale looked at Gregory. Gregory looked at the table. The table looked at Thomas. Dale left without another word.
Gregory sat back down. His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. He adjusted his Patek Philippe 3 times in 30 seconds. Willa stayed. But the sting didn't leave. This wasn't new. Not for her. Every time she reached beyond the edges of what people expected from her, every single time, someone pushed her back inside the box. Too black for the front of house. Too poor for college. Too uneducated for an opinion. Too much of a waitress to be anything else. The world had one voice for women like her, and it always said the same thing. Stay in your lane. Pour the water. Clear the plates. Don't be seen. But there was another voice. Older, quieter, stronger. Loretta's voice. Don't you dare make yourself small for anybody. Willa straightened her apron, picked up her pen, and stayed exactly where she was. What she didn't know was that someone else had been watching this entire power struggle, quietly, carefully. The way a man watches when he's deciding where to put $30 million. Sheikh Tariq Al-Farsi had seen everything. In his culture, the measure of a man is not how he treats his equals. It's how he treats the people who serve him. The waiter, the driver, the cleaner. That's where the truth lives. He had just watched Gregory humiliate a woman, try to have her removed, and lose control of his own dinner. All while that same woman held the entire evening together with nothing but her voice and her dignity. He leaned toward his senior advisor and said 6 words in Arabic. Low, calm, final. This man does not deserve our money. Willa heard it, every word. Her face gave away nothing. She kept translating, kept serving, kept breathing. But inside, she knew. The deal was already dead. Gregory just hadn't gotten the memo. The evening moved on. Dishes came and went. Small talk filled the gaps. Gregory laughed too loud at his own stories, and across the table, Sheikh Tariq reached for his water glass, then stopped, touched his throat, frowned, a small cough, then a bigger one. He loosened his collar, cleared his throat again. His advisor glanced over. Sheikh Tariq raised his hands slightly, the universal gesture for, I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. Nobody noticed what was happening. Not yet. It started with his hands. Sheikh Tariq looked down at his fingers. They were swelling, fast. His rings were cutting into skin that hadn't been tight 30 seconds ago. Then his throat closed. Not slowly, not gradually. 1 second he was breathing. The next he was clawing at his collar with both hands, gasping, face turning red, then purple. He knocked his plate off the table. Crystal shattered on the marble floor. The sound froze the entire room. Rania screamed first. She grabbed his arm and started shouting in Arabic. Fast, desperate, words tumbling over each other like a car crash. She was saying exactly what the room needed to hear, what he was allergic to, what medication he carried, where the EpiPen was, what dosage. But nobody understood a single word. Gregory jumped up. Call 911! Someone call 911 right now! Victor was already dialing. hands shaking. The dispatcher picked up and immediately started asking questions. What is the patient allergic to? What medications does he take? Has this happened before? What's the dosage on the EpiPen? Every answer was inside Rania's head. She was shouting them in Arabic, pulling Sheikh Tariq's medical card from the leather bag, waving it in the air, pointing at the Arabic text, begging someone to read it. Gregory grabbed the card, stared at it, turned it over, squinted. Arabic. Every word. Useless in his hands. Victor held up Google Translate, pointed the camera at the card. The app churned out nonsense. Allergy of the wood nut. Injection of the adrenaline pencil. Medical Arabic doesn't Google. Sheikh Tariq's lips were turning blue. His breathing was a thin whistle now, the sound a balloon makes when it's almost empty. $30 million of power and connections in that room, and not one person could read a medical card. Willa pushed through. She dropped to her knees beside Sheikh Tariq, took the medical card from Gregory's hand, read it, in Arabic, instantly. She picked up Victor's phone, the one connected to 911, and started talking. The patient is male, late 40s, severe allergy to tree nuts, specifically cashew and pistachio. He carries a prescribed EpiPen, epinephrine auto-injector, 0.3 milligrams. This is his second anaphylactic episode. The first was 18 months ago in Riyadh. No hesitation, no mistakes, like she was reading a grocery list. The dispatcher gave instructions. Administer the EpiPen immediately. Don't wait for the ambulance. Rania's hands were shaking too badly. The advisors were frozen. Thomas was holding Sheikh Tariq upright. Willa took the EpiPen from Rania's bag, asked her in Arabic, "Which thigh? Has it been used before?" Rania answered, "Right thigh, outer side." Willa uncapped the pen, positioned it. Steady hands. She pressed it into Sheikh Tariq's thigh and held it there, counting to 10 out loud. Calm, measured, like she'd done this 100 times. 3 seconds. Sheikh Tariq's eyes were rolling. 5 seconds. His chest was barely moving. 8 seconds. The room was dead silent. 10. Sheikh Tariq gasped, a raw, broken, beautiful sound. His chest heaved. Once. Twice. Then again. Ragged, ugly breathing. But breathing. Color crept back into his face, his fingers unclinched. And that's when Gregory Preston decided to open his mouth. He grabbed Willa's arm and yanked her backward off the floor. "Somebody get this cockroach away from my client before she gives him something worse than allergies." Willa looked him dead in the eye. "This man will die if I stop talking. Either help me or get out of my way." She turned back to Sheikh Tariq, held his hand, kept talking to Rania, kept translating for the dispatcher. Gregory stood behind her, arm still raised, hand still open. And 12 people stared at him like they were seeing him for the first time. The sirens came first, then the lights, red and white flashing through the restaurant windows, bouncing off the crystal glasses nobody had touched in 10 minutes. The paramedic team pushed through the front door, Dr. Amara Williams leading. Black woman, late 40s, built like someone who had carried stretchers and bad news in equal measure for decades. She needed information fast. Allergies, prior episodes, current medications, family history. Rania started talking before anyone asked. Arabic, rapid, emotional. Dr. Williams looked around the room. Does anyone here speak Arabic? Every head turned to Willa. She was still on the floor beside Sheikh Tariq. Her apron was stained,
Her hands were steady. Her voice hadn't cracked once. She translated everything. Rania's words into clean, precise English. Drug names, dosages, dates, medical history going back 3 years. She didn't pause, didn't stumble. Relate it like she'd spent her whole life in emergency rooms instead of dining rooms. Dr. Williams watched her for a long moment, then asked the only question that mattered. "You medical?" Willa shook her head. "No, I'm a waitress." Dr. Williams paused, looked at the EpiPen on the floor, looked at Sheikh Tariq, breathing steady now, looked back at Willa. "Well, you just did my job before I got here." The paramedics lifted Sheikh Tariq onto a stretcher, oxygen mask on, vitals stabilizing. Rania walked beside him, still clutching the leather medical bag. The crisis was over. The room exhaled. And Thomas Caldwell walked to the service station where Willa was washing her hands. They were shaking now. Not during the crisis, not while holding the EpiPen, not while translating. Now, when it was safe to fall apart. Thomas didn't make a speech, didn't clap her on the back, didn't perform. He just said her name. "Willa." She looked up, water dripping from her fingers. "What you did tonight. I've worked with professional interpreters for 30 years. I have never seen anyone do what you just did." She didn't answer. Didn't know how to. He asked about her life, gently, not like an interview, like a man who genuinely wanted to know. She told him, briefly, carefully. Loretta, the languages, the college that never happened. His eyes dropped to the journal poking out of her apron pocket, the worn leather, the taped spine. "May I?" She hesitated, then pulled it out and set it on the counter. Thomas opened it. Pages of Arabic, French, Spanish, Portuguese, vocabulary lists, grammar notes, phrases circled and starred, coffee stains and creased corners from 10,000 hours of self-education. His hands slowed. He closed the journal gently, slid it back to her. "I want you to come see me Monday morning. My office. I'm not asking as a favor. I'm asking because I need someone exactly like you." Willa held the journal against her chest. Her eyes were full. She nodded once. Across the room, Gregory Preston's Patek Philippe caught the light. $40,000 on his wrist, and he still couldn't tell what time it was. Thomas Caldwell's Timex hadn't moved all night. Steady, reliable, right on time. On the stretcher near the door, Sheikh Tariq raised his hand. He wanted to stop. He had something to say before the ambulance took him. The paramedics stopped. Dr. Williams looked down at Sheikh Tariq. He was weak, oxygen mask still on, but his eyes were sharp, clear, the eyes of a man who had just touched death and come back with something to say. He pulled the mask to the side, looked around the room until he found her. Willa was still at the service station, apron stained, journal pressed against her chest. She hadn't moved. Sheikh Tariq spoke in Arabic, slow, deliberate, every word carrying the weight of a man who almost didn't get to say them. Willa translated quietly for Thomas, who stood beside her. "He says, I was dying. And the woman they humiliated in front of me was the one who saved my life." The room didn't breathe. Sheikh Tariq kept going, still looking at Willa. "He says, I have boardrooms full of people with degrees from the best universities in the world. Not one of them could have done what you did tonight." Willa's voice held, barely. Her chin trembled once. She bit down on it. Sheikh Tariq said one more thing, shorter, softer, almost private, even in a room full of people. Willa didn't translate right away. She just stood there, eyes full, lips pressed tight, fighting something she wasn't going to win. Thomas waited. "He says, you are part of our family now." That was the one that broke her. Not the compliment, not the recognition, not being called smart or brave or talented. She had gone her whole life without those things and survived. But family. She hadn't heard that word directed at her since Loretta died. 2 years. 2 years of carrying that journal and those languages and that ache through every shift, every dinner service, every night alone in a studio apartment with vocabulary flashcards and no one to tell about her day. And now a man she'd met 3 hours ago, a man from the other side of the world, was lying on a stretcher calling her family. Because she spoke his language when no one else could. Willa's tears came. Quiet. No sound. Just water down her face while she held that journal like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Sheikh Tariq reached up from the stretcher, took her hand, held it. Then he spoke to Rania, a quiet instruction. Rania nodded. He looked back at Willa, pulled his oxygen mask into place. But before the paramedics started moving again, he said one word, clear enough for everyone to hear. Shukran. Thank you. The same word a Yemeni shopkeeper on 63rd Street had taught Willa 10 years ago. Same word, different continent, same gratitude. Rania leaned close to Willa as the stretcher rolled past. When he is well, he will come back. He wants to have coffee with you. He said tonight, you are not an employee. You are his guest. 4 days later, Sheikh Tariq Al-Farsi walked back into the Colton Grill. No stretcher, no oxygen mask, just a tailored gray suit, a calm stride, and the quiet confidence of a man who had unfinished business. Rania was beside him. Same leather medical bag, same composure. But this time, she carried something else. A folder. Thick. Important. Sheikh Tariq asked the hostess for the private dining room. Same room, same table. He specifically requested that Willa Hayes be his server. Word travels fast in a restaurant. Within 2 minutes, every kitchen worker knew. Denise knew. Chef Moore knew. And Gregory Preston knew. He showed up in under an hour. Fresh suit, fresh cologne. The Patek Philippe polished to a mirror shine. Victor Sloan, 1 step behind, carrying a leather briefcase stuffed with revised contract documents. Gregory had spent 4 days preparing for this moment. New terms, better margins, a concession on the Islamic finance clause that Willa had flagged. He wasn't going to lose this deal twice. Thomas Caldwell arrived 10 minutes later. Timex on his wrist. No briefcase. Just himself. The room filled the same way it had 4 nights ago. Same chairs, same lighting, same amber glow on the crystal glasses. But everything underneath had shifted. Willa brought the drinks. Arabic coffee for Sheikh Tariq. She set it down with both hands. He looked up at her and nodded once. A small gesture, but she felt it in her chest. Gregory launched immediately. Sheikh Tariq, I want to start by saying how relieved we all are that you're well.
We've revised the terms based on your team's feedback. I think you'll find Sheikh Tariq raised one hand, palm flat, fingers still. The room stopped.
He spoke in Arabic. Not to Gregory, not to Thomas, to Willa. I need you to translate for me, every word, exactly as I say it. Willa nodded. She set down her tray, folded her hands in front of her, and became the most important voice in the room for the second time in a week. Sheikh Tariq began. He spoke slowly, carefully, each sentence measured like a man who had chosen every word before he walked through the door. Willa translated. Mr. Preston, 4 nights ago, I sat at this table as your guest. I came here in good faith to discuss a partnership worth $30 million. Gregory nodded, smiled, leaned forward. Before the first course arrived, I watched you humiliate a woman in front of my entire delegation. You told her to keep her mouth shut. You called her uneducated. You waved her away like she was nothing. The smile left Gregory's face. It didn't fade. It dropped, like someone had cut the strings. Willa kept going. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. Later that evening, when my throat closed and I could not breathe, your translator app gave you nonsense. Your vice president gave you nothing. Your money gave you nothing. Victor Sloan shifted in his chair. The leather squeaked. And the woman you called a cockroach, the woman you threw to the floor, she read my medical card. She spoke to my assistant. She told the paramedics what was killing me. She held the needle that let me breathe again. Gregory's hand moved to his Patek Philippe. He didn't adjust it. He just held it, like a man reaching for something solid while the ground disappears. She did what you, with all your wealth and all your degrees and all your power, could not do. She saved my life, with a language you mocked her for speaking. Willa's eyes were wet. Her voice was not. She kept translating, word by word, her own vindication, spoken through her own mouth, in the room where she had been told she didn't belong. Sheikh Tariq paused, took a sip of his Arabic coffee, set it down. Then he finished. I will not sign this contract with Pinnacle Global Partners. Not because of the terms, Mr. Preston. The terms are fine. I will not sign because of you. The room was so quiet you could hear the kitchen exhaust fan 3 rooms away. Gregory opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He looked at Victor. Victor looked at the table. He looked at Thomas. Thomas looked at Willa. Sheikh Tariq turned to Thomas Caldwell, and for the first time he spoke in English. Rough, unpracticed, but deliberate. Mr. Caldwell, you stood up for this woman when your own partner tried to remove her. You saw her value before anyone else did. That is leadership. He slid the folder across the table. I will do business with you. Thomas looked at the folder, then at Sheikh Tariq. He didn't gloat, didn't smile, just nodded and said the only Arabic word he knew. Shukran. Sheikh Tariq almost laughed. Your Arabic needs work, but your character does not. Gregory stood up. His chair scraped the marble. That sound, like a nail on stone, was the loudest thing in the room. He looked at Willa. 3 seconds. 4. 5. She didn't look away. He had no words. For the first time in 30 years of boardrooms and deal tables and power lunches, Gregory Preston had absolutely nothing to say.
he walked out. His leather shoes clicked on the marble, each step a little quieter than the last, until the sound disappeared entirely. Victor Sloane stayed in his seat. Didn't follow, didn't speak, just sat there like a man recalculating his entire career in real time. The door closed. Sheikh Tariq turned to Willa, gestured to the chair across from him, the chair where Gregory had been sitting. "Sit, please. You are not working tonight. You are my guest." Willa looked at the chair, the same private dining room where she had poured water and cleared plates for 3 years. She had never once sat down in it. She sat.
Sheikh Tariq called for 2 fresh cups of Arabic coffee, one for him, one for her. When they arrived, he raised his cup. "Shukran, Willa." The same word, the same gratitude. From a grocery store on 63rd Street to a billionaire's table in downtown Chicago. She raised her cup, and for the first time in as long as she could remember, she didn't feel invisible. They sat together for almost an hour. 2 cups of Arabic coffee. No agenda, no contract, no translation needed. Sheikh Tariq told Willa about his mother, a school teacher in Jeddah who spoke 3 languages and never made more than $800 a month. He said his mother would have liked Willa very much. Willa told him about Loretta, the encyclopedias, the ironing, the journal. Sheikh Tariq listened the way powerful men rarely do, without checking his phone, without planning his next sentence, just listening. When he stood to leave, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Heavy stock, embossed, Arabic on one side, English on the other. He pressed it into her hand with both of his. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, you call this number." Then he looked at her one more time. "You saved my life with a language your own employer mocked you for speaking. I will never forget that, and I will make sure no one else forgets it either." He walked out, Rania beside him, the leather medical bag on her shoulder. The private dining room was empty now, just Willa, 2 coffee cups, and the faint smell of cardamom still hanging in the air. Then the kitchen doors swung open. Chef Roland Moore walked out, white coat still on, but his chef's hat was off. In 22 years, no one on staff had ever seen him take it off on the floor. He stopped in front of Willa, didn't say anything for a moment, just looked at her like he was figuring out which words were big enough. "Willa, I've worked in this kitchen for 22 years, served governors, celebrities, Fortune 500 CEOs. That is the most extraordinary thing I have ever seen happen in my dining room." Behind him, through the pass window, the kitchen staff had gathered, line cooks, dishwashers, prep cooks, the kid who peeled onions in the back and never talked to anyone. One of them started clapping. Slowly. Then another. Then the whole kitchen. The sound carried through to the main dining room. Guests at other tables looked up. They didn't know the full story, but they saw a woman in a stained apron standing in the middle of a 5-star restaurant, crying, while the entire kitchen applauded. Some of them started clapping too. Denise was waiting at the service station. She had folded a fresh apron, pressed it crisp, laid it exactly where Willa had left hers 4 nights ago. On top of it, a handwritten note on a cocktail napkin. "I always knew. D." Willa picked up the napkin, read it, pressed it against her chest right next to the journal. Some things don't need more than 4 words. 1 week later, Gregory Preston was gone. The story had spread through Chicago's business world like a grease fire. The CEO who lost a $30 million deal because he called his waitress a cockroach The details got sharper with every retelling. The cockroach line, the arm grab, the Google Translate disaster, the waitress who spoke 6 languages and saved the client's life on the dining room floor. 2 more international clients pulled their contracts from Pinnacle Global Partners within 5 days. They cited leadership concerns. Everyone knew what that meant. The board called an emergency session. Gregory walked in expecting to fight. He walked out 20 minutes later, carrying a box. His nameplate was removed from the door before lunch. Victor Sloan updated his LinkedIn that afternoon. New headline, new photo. No mention of Pinnacle anywhere. The Patek Philippe went into a drawer. Nobody asked what time it was. Monday morning, 9 a.m., Willa Hayes walked into the offices of Caldwell and Associates. She was wearing professional clothes she'd bought over the weekend, a blazer that still had the tags when she got home, shoes that clicked on the lobby floor in a way her work sneakers never did. But the leather journal was in her bag, always. Thomas Caldwell's office was exactly what she expected, and nothing like Gregory's. No ego wall, no awards displayed, just bookshelves full of books that had actually been opened. A photo from his Peace Corps days in Tunisia, his Timex sitting on the desk next to a manila folder. He didn't waste time with small talk. Global Client Relations Specialist, new international division, full salary, full benefits. You'd be the bridge between our firm and every non-English speaking client we serve. He paused, opened the folder. And this, a company-funded scholarship, full tuition, University of Chicago. Through our professional development program, you finish your degree while you work. Willis stared at the paperwork, the offer letter, the scholarship forms, the university logo she had pinned to her bedroom wall when she was 17 years old. Then Thomas reached behind the folder and pulled out one more thing. A leather journal, brand new. Same size, same style as the one she carried, dark brown, smooth spine, unwritten pages waiting. He opened the front cover. Inside, in his own handwriting, for all the words yet to come. Willa read it again, pressed her fingers against the ink. Loretta's journal said, for all the words you'll learn that I never could. Thomas's journal said, for all the words yet to come. One generation's sacrifice, the next generation's possibility. 2 journals, same leather, same love, different handwriting. Willa held both of them, one old, one new, one in each hand. She didn't say anything. Couldn't. The tears came and she let them. Thomas didn't fill the silence. Just sat there with his Timex and his bookshelves and his quiet belief that talent doesn't need a diploma to be real. 3 days later, a package arrived at Willa's apartment. No return address, just a shipping label from Riyadh. Inside, wrapped in white tissue paper, was a framed piece of Arabic calligraphy. Hand-painted, gold ink on black paper. A verse from the Quran. Whoever saves a life, it is as if they have saved all of humanity. Beneath the frame, a handwritten note from Sheikh Tariq. You will always be family. T.A. Willa hung it above her desk, next to the old journal, next to the new one, next to a photo of Loretta she kept in a dollar store frame. The same week, Fatima from 63rd Street called. She was crying before Willa even said hello. A local news station had run the story. Chef Moore had given them the details, with Willa's permission. I told my husband, Fatima said between sobs. I told him 20 years ago. That girl is going to shake the world. The story went further than Chicago. Sheikh Tariq's wife posted about it online, Arabic and English. It spread through Arab communities across 3 continents. A black waitress from the South Side who spoke Levantine Arabic and saved a man's life with it. Millions of views, thousands of comments. One that Willa kept coming back to, posted by a woman in Amman, Jordan. She spoke our language, not because she had to, because she wanted to. That is the most beautiful thing I have ever read. 6 months later, Willa Hayes sat in a glass-walled office on the 32nd floor of Caldwell & Associates. Skyline view. Name on the door. A coffee mug with Arabic script on it. A gift from Rania. She was on a video call with Al Farsi Capital's team in Riyadh, speaking Arabic, fluid, confident, laughing at something one of the advisors said. The same advisor who had sat frustrated and silent at that dinner table because nobody could understand him. He understood her just fine now. Sheikh Tariq appeared on screen for the last 5 minutes of the call. He held up a cup of Arabic coffee. Willa held up hers. They drank together. 6,000 miles apart. Same ritual, same respect. When the call ended, she opened her desk drawer. 2 journals sat side by side. The old one, worn leather, taped spine, warped pages, coffee stains, tear marks, and 6 languages crammed into every margin. The new one, smooth, clean, already half full with notes from client meetings, university lectures, and Arabic vocabulary she still picked up from conversations with Rania. She ran her fingers across both covers. Same leather, same purpose. Different chapters. Tuesday and Thursday evenings, Willa walked into a lecture hall at the University of Chicago. She was the oldest person in most of her classes, sat in the 3rd row, took notes by hand in the new journal while students half her age typed on laptops. Nobody in that classroom knew her story. She didn't tell it. She just showed up, every week, on time, prepared, the way Loretta taught her. On a Saturday morning in October, Willa took the Red Line to the South Side, got off at 63rd, walked 2 blocks to a cemetery she knew by heart. She knelt at Loretta's headstone, pulled the old journal from her bag, opened it to the first page. The inscription, shaky handwriting that got worse toward the end because the diabetes was taking everything. For all the words you'll learn that I never could. Willa placed the journal on the stone. Open, pages ruffling in the wind. She pressed her hand flat on the cover, the way she used to hold Loretta's hand in the hospital. I did it, Grandma. I learned the words. She stayed for a long time, didn't check her phone, didn't rush, just sat in the grass beside the woman who had given her everything and asked for nothing. Somewhere in a storage unit in Lincoln Park, a Patek Philippe sat in a box, still ticking, still expensive, still telling time to no one. Gregory Preston's corner office had been reassigned 3 months ago. His nameplate was in a landfill. His reputation was a cautionary tale people told at business dinners when the wine made them honest. He never apologized. Not to Willa, not to Sheikh Tariq, not to anyone. Some people lose everything and still learn nothing. So here's what I want you to do. Not next week. Not when you remember. Today. The next time someone pours your coffee, clears your table, bags your groceries, drives your car, stocks the shelves at 2 in the morning so you can grab milk on your way to work, Look at them. Actually look. Ask their name. Ask how their day is going.
Because you have no idea what they carry inside them. No idea what languages they speak, what dreams they deferred, what sacrifices they made, what they could teach you if you just stopped long enough to listen. The next Willa Hayes might be pouring your coffee right now. And remember this. If you remember nothing else from tonight, remember this. The most powerful language in the world is the one that sees people clearly. Yo, a cockroach. He called her a cockroach while she was saving his client's life, on her knees, with her bare hands. Imagine that's you right now. Imagine someone spits on you while you're saving their world. You good? Nah, me neither.